I'm Dr. Len Baer, and this is another episode of Targeted Justice v. Garland, a podcast about an extraordinary lawsuit, which Gareth Icke called the most important lawsuit of the century. If you disagree, I would like to hear from you. This will be a special episode for two reasons. First, we can take first look at the legal brief filed in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, which is filed by our fearless attorney for the plaintiffs, who has our unwavering support. And according to undisclosed sources, allegedly, Christopher Wray calls her femme fatale. Anna Toledo, happy Sunday.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again. You know, this is the highlight of my week. Although I have to admit that last night, I had the wonderful surprise of the visit of 4 TIs that came over, and we had a lovely time. And it was like the first time in a long time that I had so much fun. To all of them, that they know who they are, obviously. Thank you. I had a wonderful time.
I'm so glad you're having this human connection. We need to socialize. We don't need to be isolated. We don't have to be isolated. The program wants to isolate us, but we don't have to be isolated. And I absolutely love the background. I recognize what it is.
I want to comment, Len. Do you see how pretty I put the letters for the Fifth Circuit? It's because they have, as I will talk in a little while, they have in front of them, under their consideration, 3 cases that will forge the destiny of the United States. And I honor them with those big letters because that's how big I think of them, of the judges comprising that court.
This is why it's been called the lawsuit of the century. And there's also a second reason for this episode to be special. And this is because I am delighted to announce our first international ambassador of targeted justice in the country of Brazil, Dr. Valdemir de Oliveira, PhD. Welcome to the podcast, your ambassadorship.
Oh, thank you, Len. Thank you, Anna. It's amazing. It's an honor. I already told you that. It's unbelievable what you guys are doing. And I feel pretty honored to be able to help here, to help to share the information with Brazilians. Brazilians are not aware of what's going on. So we need to definitely together fight for this problem.
Thank you, Valdemir. We will talk to you later in the show. Before we start the long-awaited legal update, on behalf of Targeted Justice, I would like to thank all our members, supporters, and donors for your invaluable contribution to our legal efforts. Our newsletter on Substack is set to reach 1 million subscribers, and we're deeply grateful to those of you who decided to create a paid subscription on Substack. And of course, we always love reading your comments. I couldn't possibly share all of them, but here's just a small sample. Cheyenne writes, I am a targeted individual who appreciates all that you do, and I want to help toward the cause of fighting this crime against humanity. Even though I do not make the most money right now, this is what I can do for now with boldly wearing TJ merchandise. Thank you again and again. A comment from Granny. I support your work because I believe that together we can bring justice to all targeted individuals. Wonderful. And Sue writes, I think we are in a critical time to keep informed and be able to act upon events, and that is why I'm subscribing. That's a great reason, Sue. I totally agree. It's time to act and time to be empowered with knowledge. We can do an entire episode just reading your heartfelt messages, but we need to get moving because we have so much information for you today. We have a legal brief that was filed in the Court of Appeals, which is a huge accomplishment. Anna, would you please give us a taste of how much work went into this monumental effort?
When you're a solo practitioner, you are like a one-woman band. You play all the instruments at the same time and have to sing. And that requires a lot of not just concentration and work, but also attention to detail. I had to refile because one little number, instead of 607, it said 6067. And I had to redo, not to redo the whole thing, but it goes to explain how I have to be the attorney, but also the secretary and the paralegal. But I am very proud of it because this is an accomplishment that normally big firms with big staff do. And I'm very proud of the outcome, because it's like we have said all along, yes, there's targeted justice on representing his membership. There's 18 plaintiffs, but the result of this case, when we succeed, is that the illegal categories from the terrorist screening database, subcategories handling 3 and 4 will be declared unconstitutional and ordered eliminated. That is our plea, because people that are placed there do not meet the terrorist criteria. What this means is that for those, our supporters and our non-supporters, all targeted individuals will be benefited when Schriever's Air Force Base, no names, no targets, no TSC ID number, no targets. And that is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for the day that the world can go silent for all of those that have B2K, and even those of us that don't have B2K. But I will call it the day the world went silent. And so we filed on the 5th, which was the Tuesday. The government has 21 days to reply to it. We still don't have, because the court will determine if they will give us the hearing that we asked for. And I'm going to read, the arguments that we say, why should there be an oral argument? Okay. We asked because the court, filing an appeal doesn't necessarily entail an oral argument. They do it on a discretionary and need basis. So I asked that they grant the oral argument, because this court this case presents unprecedented and momentous issues that this court has never seen before. For example, this appeal presents the novel question of whether the practice of including in the terrorist screening database the names of innocent Americans, such as plaintiffs-appellants, that defendant appellees admit do not constitute a terrorist threat, represents an ultra vires, that means outside of your authority, unconstitutional exercise of government power that interferes with Americans' basic liberty and property rights. And the second one is, if under the Privacy Act, it is legal for these entities, particularly the FBI, to disclose to third parties, as we know is distributed to 18,000 tribal, federal, and state law enforcement, to 533 of the biggest corporations in the United States, and 1,440 organizations. That's the last count we have. So everybody, all those people and their employees, get the list stating that these innocent Americans are labeled suspected terrorists. Under Supreme Court precedent that we discussed before, TransUnion versus Ramirez, that constitutes injury. In fact, that is a concrete harm that each targeted individual is suffering, being illegally and falsely labeled as a suspected terrorist. But what I want to, how I always think that there's always a blessing in disguise, even for bad things. I think that getting the dismissal of the court at the time we got it was serendipity, and it was synchronicity, because the Fifth Circuit right now has 3 important cases that intermingle. They are complementary to each other, which is the Missouri versus Biden case, where people get shadow banned and their posts in social media get brought down because of government interference. That's a New Orleans case. The importance of that, as many of you should know, is that the discovery by Matt Taibbi in that FBI had sort of like a field office over at Twitter headquarters, and they were screening and pulling down posts from like 1,000 accounts. But the interesting part is that these 1,000 accounts weren't famous people. They were people that had 1,000, 2,000 followers. And I am absolutely certain those 1,000 accounts belong to targeted individuals. So that's one case that it's in the Fifth Circuit. And the other case we discussed last week ago, the Kovac versus Ray, about the lack of legal authority behind this TSDB that affects so many aspects of people's lives. And then comes in our case, which basically says, there are innocent people being placed on this list for a secret reason that is illegal in and of itself, because it's in this, under this constitution we live in, it's illegal to do that. And so I think it's the synchronicity could not be better. I am really very happy.
Let's just go to the document itself. Just one disclosure, in order to do it justice, I broke it into sections so it wouldn't feel so overwhelming for our viewers, because it's not really the goal of our podcast to dump all the information available onto your heads. I want you to really understand the legal strategy and all the caveats of the case, so you would be comfortable talking about it to your friends, family, and strangers. There's so much confusion about it out there, but you don't need to be confused. We will empower you with the information in plain English that even a fifth grader can understand. This is our mission. So let's get to it. As you said, on September 5th, 2023, the opening brief of Plaintiffs-Appellants was filed in this case. So what I noticed was new in this case is that targeted justice members with interest in the case were listed in the beginning of the brief, and it contains a list of 290 individuals. Anna, please give us a little background how this list appeared in the brief.
The local rules in the Fifth Circuit require that the parties disclose any person with interest in the case, because the judges need to verify they don't have a conflict of interest. So in my ethical duty to disclose, to do the most complete disclosure, we submitted a list. It's a list that is increasing every day, but so far it's the one that we have the complete information. It's only the people in the United States, because this is a case for now, for this here and now, it's under the United States Constitution. We are going to, targeted justice, we're going to be doing a process whereby we're going to send an email to all the people that have registered, so we make sure we have the complete information. That is why we put the names in there, so that I ethically comply with my duty to the court of telling them these people have an interest because they sent us, they are members of targeted justice, that they sent us a questionnaire saying, I am interested in you verifying my name if it's in the TSCB or not. Even though they are not parties to the case, even though this is not a class action lawsuit, like I said, I am a one-woman band. I don't have the infrastructure to carry such an endeavor. Well, those names were put in there because they are people that have expressed their interest on the outcome of the case. And that's why we included them.
All right. You already mentioned it before. The statement regarding oral arguments contains two arguments. First is due to unprecedented and momentous issues in this case, and you requested oral arguments en banc, which is in French means in bench. You are asking for all the active judges in the court to be present during the oral arguments. And the second one, because it contains novel questions, and these novel questions are whether the practice of including innocent Americans in the terrorist screening database represents unconstitutional exercise of government power, whether the practice of disseminating information to 18,000 law enforcement, 144 organizations, and 533 corporations, and 60 countries constitutes a violation of Privacy Act. You also mentioned that. And whether the district court erred in refusing to issue a preliminary injunction, which contains the request to remove names of innocent Americans improperly included in TSDB. Do you have anything to add?
I can only add that, for example, it's 1,441 organizations. That information we obtained from the El Haiti versus Cable case. I didn't make those numbers up. And so that's evidence that went into that case. The injunction, here's what we, what the court has to face is this. When a court issues an injunction, they have to do a balancing act, right? They have to determine, okay, these people are suffering this harm, but if I grant their remedy, will I cause a bigger harm, right? And in this particular situation, we're arguing the government didn't state any harm that it can suffer from removing innocent people from a terrorist database where they shouldn't be there in the first place. So, it's like you don't even have to do a balancing act because they weren't supposed to be there in the first place. So that's, I think that it is justified, and I really hope they grant our request for hearing, because as you know, we are asking targeted individuals from the four corners of the United States and from afar also, if they can come to a rally in New Orleans when we have the oral argument that we are requesting. We need to let the world know that this is not fantastical. This is not bizarre. These are not conspiracy theories. This is very real, and it's time to stop it.
Thank you, Anna. Just hypothetically, if you were gambling, let's say, what chances are that the oral arguments were granted in our case?
Well, in the other two cases that I mentioned, they have granted oral argument. So I don't see why they wouldn't grant it in this one, which is as important, if not more, than the other two. I'm not a gambler, but I think that should answer your question.
It does, Anna. I think our chances are pretty good. I like the chances. Next slide. You talk about the uniqueness of the case. And I really like these statements. You're right. Unlike dozens of prior cases challenging the TSDB, this case is not about the plight of individuals to undergo additional screening when traveling because of their status as known and suspected terrorists. The case is about the right of Americans who are not known and suspected terrorists to be free from defamatory government labels to infringe upon their most fundamental constitutional, civil, and human rights. I really like that positioning. You crystallized what is so unique about this case.
Yeah, contrary to all the previous lawsuits that have been dismissed because the targeted individuals that have, most of them pro se, filed them, they didn't have that connection and that evidence of the direct correlation between being illegally placed in the terrorist screening database under secret categories that don't represent a terrorist threat and are not screened as such, and being targeted. So this is the first time a court encounters, and what we're emphasizing, we're not even emphasizing the program here. What we're emphasizing is the right to be free from defamatory government labels. Because as mentioned before, this list goes to everywhere. One of our plaintiffs, he went to do a wire transfer in Western Union and it was denied. The same happened with another TI in New York. So it's basic things of life. As you know, Richard Lighthouse was lying on the floor and the ambulance service blocked until the deputy sheriffs secured the area because they were told there was a terrorist in the premises. He could have died. So we're talking here about essential services that a human being is entitled to are being blocked, just as getting a job, just basic rights that we have, right? So I'm not talking about going into the torture and all of that. No, I'm just going into the fact that we are not supposed to be, none of us is supposed to be in a terrorist database when the FBI acknowledges that we know targeted individual represents a terrorist threat, period. So that's and it has been recognized by the Supreme Court. It is a concrete reputational harm susceptible to redress.
Thank you for explaining this further. This slide is about issues presented for review. And all these issues are about whether the district court erred in dismissing with prejudice all these following claims. You have about 13. How do they connect to each other? Is there a hierarchy of these errors? You list that they dismissed well-pleaded factual allegations. And to me, this is probably the number one. This is the most obvious, the fundamental error that the district court made. That they dismissed the amended complaint, that they dismissed the declaratory judgment, that they dismissed the petition for injunction. They rejected writ of mandamus, which is a judicial remedy. They rejected a request for limited discovery, and they mistakenly concluded that TJ lacked associated standing. And there's more, including the change of venues. But please give this list a little structure. What follows what? How would you present all this?
It's really 1 and 2 are the most important ones, and the other ones go inside within those arguments, and I'll explain how. But the thing is that if you don't list the issues that you want the court to review, you deem them waived. So even though some, like 3 on, are included within 1 and 2, and I'll explain how, well, I had to separately list them, itemize them, otherwise they would have been deemed renounced. Okay, so the first one, which is a Rule 12b-1, that one's the district court says, these people, this is fantastical, this is unbelievable, and because it is completely unbelievable and the complaint is just, it makes no sense, basically, you have no jurisdiction. I have no jurisdiction because there's really not a case here. So in that one, there is a mantra that all courts use, which is the court must accept as true all the well-pled facts of the complaint and read the complaint in the light most favorable to plaintiffs. It is so well known that I know it by heart because, it's everybody knows this. This is the standard for the motion to dismiss. What this means is that you read the complaint and everything that is in there it's not, outrageous things. We put in there that, for example, private individuals nominate people to the list. That is not a conclusory. That is a factual statement. All the statements. That's why we made so many paragraphs, because each paragraph was a statement of fact. That was not a conclusory allegation. So the district court concluded that nothing was believable in the complaint. So that's the first thing we're challenging. And the second thing within that one, we have because the court said that the plaintiffs had no standing, meaning they didn't establish injury in fact. And on April 8th of 2023, we filed a motion to compel limited discovery for defendants to provide the TDSB status of the 18 plaintiffs. So the court dismissed, saying none of these plaintiffs have seen the list or have it. So that the court equated that to saying they didn't plead enough that they're there, that they were there, and that's incorrect. And that's one of the issues that we're bringing, because the discovery request went. If the court had granted the discovery we asked, the court could not have dismissed the complaint, because the court would have seen that all the plaintiffs are in categories 3 and 4 of the TSDB. So by not adjudicating a motion in 3 months, allowed the court to say, well, they haven't even seen the list, they don't know if they're on the list. No plaintiff goes to court with all the evidence in their hands. So that's another of the issues. The one that says that they failed to state a claim upon which relief could be granted, well, the other ones underneath, the declaratory, the preliminary injunction, and the mandamus, go to that, because the court did not discuss in its memorandum and order whether or not it's legal to have the names of innocent non-terrorists on a terrorist database. The court did not discuss that, and that is our main claim. Okay, so that's one. The second one was the correlation between, obviously, the list and the program. The third is the injunction demanding order FBI to remove the names of innocent people from this list. They have no place there, and there's no legal authority, because Homeland Security Presidential Directive 6 clearly stated that this was only a law enforcement tool to place the names of known and suspected terrorists. It didn't give any space for secret criteria or any immigration purposes or any other thing. So, and the mandamus one, which is very important as well, is when some public official has a non-discretionary duty to act in a certain way. In this particular case, we are demanding that the defendants, in their official capacity, comply with the law and the Constitution and stop putting innocent people, non-terrorists, on that list, and remove the ones that are there, because it is repugnant to the statutes, to the rights, to the Constitution. That the district court did not discuss as well, even though the court said, oh, they have no claims that they would be entitled to relief. The truth is that these were not discussed. So yeah, there were claims. It's just that the court didn't get to discuss them, based on the fact that allegedly there was no jurisdiction, because it was all fantastical. But there is something that's not fantastical. All the claims regarding the illegality of placing innocent people on this list is evidence that comes from the United States government, official, irrefutable documents. Okay, so I didn't make it up. It all came from them, and it cannot be denied. Another point that we put in there is that the district court refused to take judicial notice, for example, of the information, the official document that came from the Congress, from the whistleblowers that testified before Congress, that the FBI pays their supervisors between $30,000 and $50,000, like economic bonuses, to put people on, to declare people as domestic terrorists, even though they don't meet the criteria. That was testified by Mr. Friend in Congress. So the courts refused, that's another issue that we've brought in review, refused to take judicial notice under Federal Rule of Evidence 201 of this item, when the Fifth Circuit's precedent says the court must take judicial notice things, of documents that meet Rule 201, that are trustworthy, right? For the purposes of analyzing in a motion to dismiss in the context. And the DOJ constantly brings documents and asks the court at a pleading stage to take judicial notice for their benefit, right? But in this case, the court refused to take a judicial notice of it, concluding it would constitute hearsay. And it is our position that's wrong, because the hearsay rule is when you are in trial. You cannot just accept a document without authenticating it and having somebody testify about its contents. But that's in a trial phase, not at a pleadings phase. So that conclusion contravenes Fifth Circuit precedent. Actually, if everything we listed there in these issues for review are what the district court concluded is opposite to the long-standing Fifth Circuit precedent. So those are the issues. Many of them are within 1 and 2.
I also get an impression that all of these things were refused, and if the judge allowed just one, the rest would fall just like a house of cards. Just allow us just one of those things, one of those many, many, many things that you asked. You rejected all of them. And if you allowed just one, we wouldn't be having this conversation in the Fifth Circuit. So thank you, Anna, for this analysis. As I said, we broke it in parts. So the legal analysis is to be continued, but one thing is very clear. I can almost see the New Orleans skyline from here. This is where we are going to stop for today with the legal analysis. The defendants have until October 5th to respond, and we have 30 days to digest the arguments Anna is making in this meticulously constructed legal documents. So please take your time and process this information at your own pace. Listen twice, listen with your friends, ask questions, post them on YouTube, Twitter, Substack. Substack now has a chat section, and I started a thread just for the legal questions. We are reading your comments. I personally love receiving your well thought out suggestions. After all, this is a product of teamwork and love, and not a one-way street. But of course, you know that.
Yes, along those lines of the comments, and I am very grateful to all the positive comments and the prayers and the solidarity of all the targeted community that has come together. Without you, we can't do this. And to those that are very active in social media, I urge you, we want the media to pay attention to us. If you are rude or don't treat people with respect in social media, they're not going to respond to you. They're either going to block you or just say, oh, this person's unstable. So just try to when you address and make comments, try to be kind and talk with facts, and most importantly, don't make it about yourself. This is about 400,000 in the United States and 6 million around the world. Don't make it about yourself, because it is more credible when you make the point on behalf of this huge amount of people that are suffering. That interests the media more than just one person. That's my 2 cents, Len.
But wait, there's more. When you thought the legal update was over, we have a surprise from the country of India. The Indian Express reported on August 7 of this year that the Karnataka High Court has directed the government center to investigate the possibility of Havana syndrome in India within 3 months. Have you heard about it, Anna?
I have not, but I did see a cell tower up in flames 2 weeks ago. They put it in social media. It seems that people are getting fed up with what's happening. And I just, it was impressive.
Here's how it happened. The petitioner had approached the court requesting a writ of mandamus, sounds familiar, for an inquiry on Havana syndrome in India and the prevention of high-frequency microwave transmission. So I actually got hold of the original court documents. So the High Court of Karnataka on 27th of July of this year, the complaint was filed by this gentleman against a Department of Telecommunications in India. And this is what the order says. This is a strange case where the petitioner has scripted in his principal prayers is as under. This is so hard for me to read because India has its own judicial language. But the bottom line that the judge ordered a government agency to investigate within 3 months and come back with the results of the investigation, whether Havana syndrome is taking place in India. And I'm just afraid that since the investigation has been assigned to a government officer or government agency, I'm just afraid that the conclusion in 3 months will be no, there's no Havana syndrome in India. What are your thoughts, Anna?
Well, that's a possibility, but at the same rate, they have to. India, well, there is a huge population of targeted individuals, and they have to protect their people. And concluding that the phenomenon, I mean, you cannot deny it exists because there's physical, traces and evidence of it. So it's not like you can, like my mom used to say, you cannot cover the sky with one hand. Like if you put your hand here, yeah, you can say that you can cover the sky, but that's not the case. Where we are right now in history, the dam has cracked. The information is out there. National Academies of Science has its study, and it's the physical symptoms and traces, evidence in the people's brains is there. So if they are going to corruptly sweep it under the rug, it's going to be very hard because it's out there. I really hope they defend, they work for their people and call it as it is. There is a huge problem in India, as in China, as in Australia, as in Thailand, as in the United States. It's huge. You correct me, but I mean, how many months of severe microwaving does it take to start creating physical changes in the brain?
Even one attack, if it's done with high enough power, is enough. You can determine physical damage to the vestibular organs, and you can detect biomarkers of damage to the blood-brain barrier, literally within 24 hours after the attack. So yes, there's evidence. There's physical evidence. There's biochemical evidence. There's plenty of evidence. You just have to be willing to look at. And I'm just so afraid that the Indian government will come back and will say, well, maybe it's a real thing, but we don't have any evidence that it happens in India. And this is a call to anybody out there who has that kind of evidence in Indian population. And I understand this is a different country, different rules, but the question has been asked, is Havana syndrome happening in India? And I'm afraid that no amount of United States and international experts will convince the Indian government that it is happening in India unless the evidence is produced in the Indian population. So that's the gravity of this task. I'm calling to everybody who listens to podcast to think about it in these terms. If you have any evidence of Havana syndrome in Indian population, maybe Indian individuals who reside in India, if you know that they have experience and they have some medical evidence, please reach out to me, and I will then reach out to the people connected with this lawsuit. And you're absolutely right. India is a humongous country. It's almost 18% of world population, 1.4 billion. I think above that is only China. And if you just extrapolate, if we think 6 million people in the targeted screening database are targeted individuals, just the pure extrapolation, then there's 1 million of targeted individuals in India. Can you imagine 1 million targets if they can get together and join forces?
Well, Len, I just have to say something, which is sometimes we tend to overlook, and is the impact of the microwave attacks on the developing brain of children. We know that children, toddlers, are being microwaved because they are targeted along with their parents. And the Havana syndromes, correct me if I'm wrong, the Havana syndrome studies that there are all on adult brains. But I just can't fathom the cumulative damage to children. I mean, what is going to happen to the brain of a child, a developing brain that is being microwaved every day?
That is a terrible thought. They clearly, if the damage is done to a developing brain, it just will never achieve its full potential. And it is frightening, it is terrible, and it is extremely disturbing. So, very good point, Anna. Another reason to fight. Speaking of large countries, the largest country in South America, of course, is Brazil, with its population of 216 million people. So let's talk to our first ever ambassador of targeted justice to Brazil, Dr. Valdemir de Oliveira. Valdemir?
Oh, thank you, Len. Thank you, Anna. Wonderful intellectual work you guys are producing. It requires so much effort. It's unbelievable what you guys are doing. And this is so important to share here in Brazil. We need to inform people about this. I met several people on the internet that claims to be targeting individuals. Yesterday night, I just received another one. Imagine now that I'm gonna be ambassador. It's an honor, and I will be fighting for that for sure. But before, I just gonna show one T-shirt here. You're gonna understand that. Before I get the T-shirt that Anna gets, which is wonderful, I want to show this T-shirt here. You're gonna understand later in my presentations why do you wear this T-shirt now. There's a purpose for that.
Let me give a little background about the ambassadorship program that we conceived. When we realized that our website, targetedjustice.com, is not being accessed from the countries known for their extensive targeting programs, countries like Japan, Malaysia, India, Brazil, we asked an internet expert, how could this be remedied? And he suggested translating the website into their respective languages and using a country-specific website host. Of course, we cannot do it alone, and that's exactly how the ambassadorship idea was born. Soon, residents of Brazil will be able to access targetedjustice.br, which will be in Portuguese, thanks to the effort of Valdemir. So thank you for that. And Valdemir, you have an impressive resume. You have PhD in marketing from the Manchester School in United Kingdom. You speak with confidence. You understand what's going on. I know you have prepared a presentation. I would like to listen to your presentation, and then I would also hear about certain highlights in your targeting history. Please go ahead with the presentation.
I prepare one slide with a little bit of background about what's been happening to me in the since 2010. So I would say the last 13 years, I was living in England between 2005 and 2014, 15. So it was a difficult time, and let's see what happens. So how it all started. Last quarter of 2009, I must say before that I was having a wonderful life in Britain between 2005 and 2009. I was married, I was studying, I did an MBA, so I did a master, and after that, very nice, wonderful life. But then I entered a PhD at University of Manchester, and the last quarter of 2009, I must say that's the only thing I can think of that must be the reason why I was put in the radar. So I signed a list of Arabic speakers during the PhD director's presentation at my university in Britain, thinking it was for a gathering event. So at the time, I was watching the presentation, and okay, I'll list here names, Arabic names. Why Arabic names only? Okay, let's sign. I know these people, so maybe they're gathering together. So I have friends that are Arabic speakers. So later, on 27th of December, my wife and I were at Heathrow Airport, Terminal 5, London, coming back from Stuttgart, Germany, Christmas time. A man of average stature and Indian origin, wearing a turban, passed in front of me in the lounge 3 times, back and forth, staring at me. I noticed that, and I saw he started to follow me from the lounge to the gate to Manchester flight at night. So from London to Manchester. He then sits beside me in one side, and my ex-wife was immediately approached by an airport operator on the other side, asking loads of questions about us. Then the man picked up our flight and followed us to Manchester. I suspect, well, a passenger wouldn't do that. Any passenger, any terrorist. I suspect he was undercover police officer from Heathrow. So undercover police officer from Heathrow is a Scotland Yard. And Scotland Yard, perhaps from the special branch SO15 intelligence office. They are the ones responsible to understand what's going on in an airport. And 2 days before, on the Christmas day, there was an attempt of a terrorist attack in a flight from Amsterdam to Detroit. So MI5 announced on that particular time an imminent threat of attack nationwide. So what happened is the police was all over the place. They were everywhere. And these guys were undercover in very challenging situations. And I got that kind of situation. So I realized I was being followed. So I wrote a petition to IPT, Investigatory Powers Tribunal, which was a watchdog from the police, stating, oh, this is just too much. I have a normal passenger. I am honest and have never had any criminal background. What's happening with these guys following me? And then they dismissed. They said, no, we have no reasons to believe there's anything of the kind you're suggesting. So they dismissed. Okay, there we go. 2010, 2014. February 2010, I heard a voice in the head for the first time. I noticed that, but I didn't give too much attention. I just say, oh, something weird. And in May, I started to be followed streets by some people. At some point in the first semester of 2010, I received, oh, that's terrible. What happened next is just terrible. I received a link from a website suggesting adult encounters. I inadvertently clicked on the link, and a photo of approximately 7 naked children aged between 7 and 10 years appeared in my screen. I was appalled and shocked, and I closed it immediately. So it's weird that this situation happened in my life. I'm 52 years old. At the time I was 40. I never had any kind of problems like this before. Where on earth this leak came from? So it took me 10 years to identify the owner of the website. And I know him now. I know that he was responsible for the website, and he has to explain things in court later. The website is just a white label platform he produces for someone else to explore the situation. Not much after that, I start to hear derogatory comments apparently coming from the neighborhood. I thought it was from the neighborhood anyway. I didn't have a clue about that at the time. But guess what? They were talking about the photo. What a coincidence. The guy is talking about the photo, the voices that I start to hear. Was not that something weird? Something that should be just known by me? How could on earth someone else knowing that? So that was between 2010, 2014. Then it came the overt surveillance part. Between 2011 and 2014, I start to hear lots of voice all the time, everywhere. And remember, I was doing a PhD. I was trying to cope with the challenges of a PhD. So I was hearing, oh, he's a pedo, oh, he has to go to jail, all kinds of voices. So I have to interrupt my PhD. I interrupted 3 times on this period. And my supervisors were wonderful. They gave me very nice support. Unfortunately, one supervisor passed away without knowing what's going on, what this is about. He was appalled what I said. So I was in distress, and I came back to my home country in August 2011 in a short break in order to have an appointment with a psychiatrist. Guess what the psychiatrist told me? Oh, you're hearing voices, so you must be having a delusional disorder. So I have been followed and severely harassed in all 3 flights that I took between England and Brazil during that period. It was noticeable during the 2013 flight, a discussion that took place during the flight between what appeared to be an English group and a Brazilian group. They surrounded me, they sit all over me, around me on the flight, and walk in the airplane. So I'm not referring to voices that are hearing during the airplane. I'm referring to what I saw. They walked from the front of the plane and came back to my area, and a Brazilian lady told, oh, I don't like this guy, but he's innocent. Let's interrupt this plan. And then an English guy said, no, we cannot discuss this in the airplane. You're going to go ahead with this, don't you? So they kept that the kind of discussion. I was, what's going on here? What kind of situation is this? Who are these people? Well, they talk about private issues about myself. So in 2014, my wife had just enough. She had too much, and she asked for divorce 3 months before my viva. So my supervisor just asked me, oh, come on, we want to interrupt again? No, I have to finish. It's terrible. I'm depressed. It's horrible. I lived with 22 years with my ex-wife, so I didn't want that to happen, but I understand what's happening. It's too much for her. So let's follow life and see how it goes. And then in 2015, I got my PhD. Despite all the voice in the head, I returned for good to Brazil. In 2016, the voice changes from English speakers to Brazilians. Weird, isn't it? If you were a schizophrenic, how come on earth that the voices change language for all of a sudden? And it's coincidence with the time that you change country. Was not that interesting? Between 2015 and 17, it was the worst period of my life. I never had anything like that before. I started to consider suicide. I told my psychiatrist, and my psychiatrist ordered a hospitalization because I couldn't have a place that I could stay calm. I tried to go out and I hear the voices. I try to stay at home. I just hear the voice during the night. I was afraid to go to bed. So I have no place to stay calm. And my mother, an 18 years old person who has health issues, started to cry, and the guys didn't stop. They kept going. They kept harassing me. She was watching, witnessing my situation, and cry all the time. Imagine how cruel is this? And I visit the psychiatric hospital, but the people there was much worse than me. I thought, no, I'm not going to stay here. It's not healthy for me, and I'm going to bounce back, and I'm going to stay at home. Fortunately, I live with my parents in a wonderful place here in the countryside. So I start to adopt my life to a kind of target individual style of life. So as I moved to a rural area, I got just less stressed, and I start to get engaged myself with this situation in order to try to understand what's going on. So I think the recovery come between this period, 2018, 2023. During this period, I learned about the term gang stalking, and I start to search for explanations. I made a great deal of progress since then, understanding everything about the TI program. I spent twice as much time studying the TI phenomena as I spent doing my PhD. So it has been 5 years that I have no more episodes of irritation, despair, and panic attacks. And however, the voice 2K paradoxically increased severely 24/7, and I became less responsive to the voices attacks. So what happened is, as soon as I get resistant to the provocations, to the attacks, they increase the severity of that. And I asked my psychologist, my psychiatrist, is not weird that when you get better, you hear more? And by the way, the voice doesn't stop after any medication. Try anything. It doesn't stop. Like Dr. John Hall said, people who are target individuals doesn't respond to medication. And here we go. I have here, as you can see, it's from Amy Audio, subliminal acoustic fingerprint. Amy is doing a great job for Icator, our counterpart in Brussels. So I recorded my audio and sent to her, and she said, oh, definitely you have something here. We have plenty of conversations between criminals in your audio. And then we have almost 10,000 verbatim. So here's an evidence that Amy is working for the court case in Europe that shows how a way to track V2K. So now I'm gonna show something that you're gonna find very interesting. So I was back in Brazil, and here we go. A manual of psychological operations from the Brazilian Army. Ministério da Defesa, Exército Maior, Brazilian Army, Psychological Operations Edition, 3rd edition. So this was done to help Army officers to understand about how it goes with psychological operations in advertisement, in propaganda campaign against an enemy. But they adapt that to the target individual program. And I'm going to show you, I show the evidence here. So incredible link between what I hear and what they say, the voices tell me. So here we go. Technicians used for propaganda, generalities. Oh, everybody in England hates him. Some kind of word that resembles what the technical says. Oh, general brilliant comments. Oh, look how beautiful is his life. They talk about me like this now. Their voice, they're less aggressive now, but look how beautiful is his life. They repeat this so many times for me. Simplification. All eyes on him. When I was in England, they said, all eyes on him. And now, after being named ambassador, they said, stop everything now. So there is a kind of technique that they use that resembles the others. Familiar situation. Oh, his brother doesn't like him. Oh, his mother has Alzheimer. And there we go. And then we have more here. Adoption to the majority. Everybody looking for the X website. X website was my neighbor. They tried to accuse her of being the responsible for my situation. And nobody is looking at his website. When they claim that I had a website and she has a website, they repeated it so many times. Witnesses, testemunho, witnesses. Oh, Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is the name of our ex-president. Bolsonaro is going to close the case. So this is an appeal to use a very important person in order to show that there is weight in what they are saying. And, oh, Biden is talking to the Pope about him. This is because I submit Twitter to the Pope, to Biden. I submit Twitter to everybody and saying, oh, there's a case here. To even the King Charles. I submit the people to British Rishi Sunak. So they use these people, the voices use these people to say, oh, they are doing this, or Bolsonaro is going to close the case, or Biden is talking to the Pope. So this is a kind of technique that they call testemunho, witnesses. Here is some more. There's plenty of more, but I haven't got time for all of them. So I just highlight some of them here. So incitation. Oh, the West is going to take the case because they admit that they cannot deal with me anymore because it's just 5 years and I don't respond. I'm relaxed, I'm calm, I make jokes about them. And they just come and say, oh, the West is going to take the case, like presenting something as a heavyweight. Repetition. Are you sure he's not a pedophile? Oh, they repeat these so many times. Unbelievable. Prep. They spend one night saying good things. So they spend like 6 hours saying good things. And then the other day, I'm relaxed, and they come up again, attack and say all the previous things that they are doing. So trap is another kind of, and these are in the army manual. Rumors. It looks like his ex-neighbor has a plan to kill him. I heard that 2 weeks ago. It looks like, so they plant a rumor about the situation. Personal attacks. I really don't like this guy. I hate him. He's fat, he's alcoholic, he's lazy. So all these things, can you see the relationship between what I hear and what the manual says? An incredible coincidence. But someone from the outside could say, oh, that's just a coincidence. Okay, so if you have not enough of coincidence, let's show a little bit more. Let's go for the next slide. These two guys, they are stalkers. This couple sits at the same table in a motoring restaurant 100 kilometers away from my home. I stopped them from time to, I stopped there, sorry, there is a mistake here. I stopped there in the restaurant. From time to time at random times and days. Look, random times and days. How could on earth these guys be there? So the woman uses fake ID. I follow her to the counter and I took note of her ID because here in Brazil, we can ask for receive a fiscal note of our expenses. The person asks, oh, do you want a fiscal invoice? And then it's up to you to decide. So she said, oh, yes, I want. And she gave her ID and I took note of her ID, and I hire a private investigator, and guess what? He used a fake ID. And they laugh at me at the times, they stare at me. So clearly a stalking situation. But guess what? It gets worse. Look at this guy. See his arms? He was wearing a t-shirt that says, and at the time, I was trying to understand the situation in Brazil, but because I took too much time studying the foreigner situation, the British situation, and I didn't pay too much, I admit I didn't pay too much attention to Brazil. When I realized there is a manual of torture by the army, I saw this guy came when I was in São Paulo, 100 kilometers from here, and wearing the t-shirt, and his t-shirt is written, still trying to figure out. So my response to him is this: I have already figured out. Okay? So guess what this guy does for a living? Do you have an idea, Len?
I have no clue. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay, so I'm gonna show what he guys does for a living. He works for the counterterrorism intelligence officer. Unbelievable. And I have more than 2 sources that confirm that to me. So what I did, I took a picture of him and I tried to submit my picture to Alison Smith from Ecuador, the secretary from Melanie Richter, immediately after I took the picture. Look at the side, I couldn't send the picture for February 2023. I couldn't send the picture in my phone. So how on earth this guy, which is just a coincidence, came to know that I was about to send a picture to Ecuador? How he knew that? Or someone. So this shows that there is a link between ground floor operations and someone from the intelligence officer. So what I did, I started to search for explanations, more specifically in Brazil, in São Paulo. And then I realized, oh, take a look at this before I show the next slide. Take a look at this. It's a video, short video.
Hi, people. As you can see, these videos are not working. These are important videos. It's just to show that something really weird is going on. I tried to download the video. I can't find the video, and the video is important. I'll tell you in another email what is this related to. Don't worry. So I just want to report here that the video is not working. I cannot click on the video, and this video is very important. Thank you.
So this video was about him. And I used WhatsApp for 2013, let's say 10 years I used WhatsApp. It never frozen before. But on that particular moment, my WhatsApp froze. I couldn't send the video to anybody. And I tried my mother's phone, it didn't work. My housekeeper's Instagram, it didn't work. All of them frozen. I was hacked on that day. I tried to submit to the police an explanation of my hack. It didn't work. So can you see the link? Someone from outside would say, oh, it's just a coincidence over there. So here he goes. I start to search for explanation, and the counterterrorism unit, called here popularly as BOP, as a special branch for terrorism unit, is an intelligence unit. I'm not talking about the tactical side, the people who are heavily guarded, armed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the intelligence unit. So there is a neighborhood in São Paulo called Vila Mariana, and I found that these actually exist because you see here YouTube and BOP Vila Mariana. So it shows, I cannot show this video because I don't want to compromise more people or identify anybody. But this video shows that this unit really exists. I couldn't find the building though. I tried to find the building, I couldn't find, there's no information about the building. But I realized I don't need to find this building because I realized later. So I got this organogram here from the police. So the source is Military Police of São Paulo, Brazil. He's the general commandant, and here is something interesting. This unit is here. This unit is here, counterterrorism unit. But above them, there is another unit called Countering of Intelligence of Military Police, and this unit provides information to the BOP unit. So it must be here that something happens, that they know what's going on. They must have information. They must have received the information about myself from the British. and I believe that they have all the capabilities to run this. And let's understand why. So I put here a slide that shows the link between the FBI and this terrorist unit, counter-terrorist unit. And here they say, together we are stronger. So this proves that they work together on this. So if we are suing the FBI, it's likely that you need to sue later in Brazil these guys. And here it goes, something I just put here. So what I may be doing in Brazil? I found out the 1st Battalion of Psychological Operations in Goiânia, center of Brazil, a special branch from the Army, released a manual of psychological operations. And there were striking similarities between the techniques of psychological tactics and what I hear 24/7. I was gang stalking by a member of the counter-terrorism unit, the intelligence division from both Vila Mariana, São Paulo. I found out that the CPM, Center of Intelligence from Military Police of São Paulo, is the source of intelligence data to BOP. And therefore, here it appears that the Army supplied the infrastructure and the regional military police may do the stalking, because the Army doesn't have the network, the capillarity to reach the entire country. So they need local police officers to do the stalking for them. So that's what's maybe going on. And in conclusion, I would say, I'm not stating that the military police definitely carries over the TI program in São Paulo, but they are the only actors in the ecosystem which have the capabilities to do so. Because of a culture of high secrecy, nobody knows what's going on there, a limited budget, more than 1 billion real in 2023, unlimited personnel, thousands of police officers working for the corporation, highly guarded building that protects from outside inspection without supervision, high disciplinary protocols which penalize whistleblowers. So I ask myself many times, why these people never gave up talking? Oh, this is okay, we can say there's automated, but there is a level of live comments as well. And they never stop, they work in shift. Only the police can have this kind of situation, not criminals from outside. They don't have the discipline to go and keep the situation going. So they are high disciplinary protocols that penalize whistleblowers. They're dedicated personnel who spend years building a career and have financial compensation and stability for them and their members, family members. They have access to state-of-the-art surveillance technology. It's wrong here, technology. They have national reach through each police unit on every county, but with local presence. And they have an international network and partnership with FBI, Scotland Yard, and many other international law enforcement bodies. So it must be the best actor to propagate this TI program, to establish this TI program. There we go. Bernd, with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Valdemir. Your story has really some key elements. It has the Arab speaker connection, which most likely connected you with the TSDB. And then it has the elements of V2K. It has the element of entrapment, a very clear element of entrapment. The most fascinating thing to me was the handover from the British to Portuguese V2K. That I never heard. And you've done an extremely good detective work to present all this information. I'm just really impressed. And what I'm also impressed about is how you personally handle the situation, because it takes intellectual integrity and takes a lot of composure to maintain your situation and be a responsible member of society and somebody who can represent targeted justice in Brazil. And so we once again, congratulations on this important position. Now you're responsible for the entire country of Brazil for educating other targeted individuals about this atrocious program. Anna, do you have any questions or any comments about this?
No, I am just so impressed how, he meticulously was able to notice and document things, because many targeted individuals go for years being targeted without realizing it. And the way he documented it and did it, I think it's so good. And this goes to what I tell people to do their journaling, because memory fails us, particularly if we have Havana syndrome, and it is so important to journal and to keep such detailed records, and little things that seem unimportant, they really are. And I just commend him, because it's a really sound account of how his targeting came about. Of course, we don't know the other side, the black side, the perpetrator side, which one day hopefully we can all discover. But I really commend him, because that gives credibility to targeted people.
It took me 10 years to identify the owner of the website who traps me, but he got 9,000 pounds, almost 1 million pounds, 2 months after I left the country. So he has a very weird kind of business work, and people are getting money for this.
Well, here's the thing. You're probably not the only victim, except that you are probably the smartest or more well-educated person that was able to pin this down. But God only knows how many people, and they know how many people he was able to entrap. And that's one thing that I'm telling everybody, that we have to be so careful about, simple things as, accepting a job as a nanny. You can't do that if you're a targeted individual, because they will frame you and call you a pedophile. Or, there's just so many things that we have to be so extra careful about, because these people will make up anything. So we don't know how many victims like you were victims of that person.
It's interesting to me that this is the second episode in a row that the V2K aspect of this program is in the center of our discussion. Last time, we had a very interesting conversation, and we went over the mainstream media mentions of this technology. And so, just as an appendix to that, I want to give you just a couple more slides on the technological issues, so you would also be able to explain in plain English how it is technologically possible. I call this presentation Sensation of Hearing Part 2, because the first one was just called Sensation of Hearing. But this is, once again, about understanding the V2K phenomenon only from a more technological aspect of this. This centerpiece of V2K technology that we mentioned on Targeted Justice website all over, and it's in all the writing, everybody knows about it, that the basic technology is described in the 1988 patent number 4877027. And here's the first page of it. So this patent talks about using microwave range radio waves in the range of between 100 and 10,000 megahertz. And I want to remind you that acoustic range, the audio waves that we hear, they also have frequency, but they're in the frequency between 20 and 20,000 kilohertz. So the difference between kilo and megahertz is 1,000 times. So at that frequency range, they're no longer audible. However, you can use them in a modulated form. The Frey effect that we talked about in the last episode talks about modulated and pulsed microwave effect, that it does produce a sensation of hearing. And this patent also talks about modulation of microwaves. It's not just the microwaves that produce this effect. The waves have to be modulated. There are two main waves how they can be modulated. It can be modulated to add bursts and pulses, and it's pretty self-explanatory that it's not a continuous wave. It comes in bursts and pulses. And the second type of modulation, which is a little harder to understand, this is why I included the next slide, it's a modulation of a waveform. So imagine that acoustic signal, for example, on top, the red line, that's an acoustic signal that has a waveform. For example, it corresponds with some word, and it's an audible range. And this is what the wave looks like. Then in the middle, you see a microwave. The frequency is much faster, like 1,000, the frequency is 1,000 times higher. But then you can modulate and imprint that audible acoustic signal onto this microwave and change the shape of this microwave, making it a modulated microwave. And that's what produces a V2K, a hearing effect, a sensation of hearing without having an acoustic sound. I hope I explained it in a way that you can understand, you can use in your conversations, that you can educate your psychiatrists, physicians, anybody. How is it that you can hear a microwave? You can hear it because of the modulation of these microwaves by producing bursts, pulses, and the shape of the wave. So now, after this presentation, can you explain how V2K works? Valdemir?
Absolutely. And I have here with me, what you can see here is a spectral analyzer. I learned with Richard Lighthouse, looking at the website, and I got a 400 megahertz signal here that is not allowed to have the signal in the mainstream. So I got in my direction, come from the cell tower. So I did some analysis and they stopped transmitting, strangely, they stopped transmitting 400 megahertz. They started to transmit on the same signal of my Wi-Fi, 2.4 gigahertz.
Correct, Valdemir. It's very hard to jam a signal because the frequency of the carrier wave, of the wave that carries that signal, almost doesn't matter. This pattern talks about between 100 and 10,000 kilohertz, but it can be in gigahertz. It can be basically the frequency of the carrier wave almost doesn't matter. What matters is how it is modulated. It is modulated into pulses and the shape of the wave. And that is the takeaway message from me. I hope now everybody can understand the technological aspects of V2K and explain it to your relatives, to your loved ones, to your friends, and be understood. So our show is coming to an end. Our awesome show is coming to an end. And I would like to hear some final thoughts from Anna and Valdemir. Anna, why don't you go first?
Well, again, I want to thank you for my weekly for this weekly show that is so important to all of us because it has the purpose. It has served the purpose of explaining why we should all be hopeful that we're going to be free very soon. The people behind this program never fathomed that the truth would come out. And it has come out in so many ways, particularly this week. As you know, Greg Reese published a report on targeted individuals that has had, yesterday it had over 384,000 views. And so did the group Anonymous. They sort of used some of his clip without his authorization, but they put it out there. And the important thing is that yesterday, the PACER system for the Southern District of Texas was having problems. I believe that it could be either hacking or other people think it's that because so many people were looking up our lawsuit. Either way, what's important is that the word is getting out there, the dam has cracked, and there is no stopping the deluge of the truth, which is going to set us free. And I'm just relishing on it because I know what's going to happen, with the help also of the boots on the ground, the grassroots organizing of the targeted community. Continue sending your letters to the cell tower companies. Continue. We're going to start the churches now. It's every single one of you out there is like, it's our ambassador, and we need to, like you say, explain to friends and relatives in cool, collected, this is a matter of law. It's a question of law. Innocent people should not be on a terrorist database placed there secretly without giving due process and opportunity to confront the evidence against them, and the opportunity to be removed from a list that defames them. So that's my long, short message. Thank you, Len.
Thank you, Anna. I can't wait to hear your final words, Valdemir. Your presentation really impressed me. It was a wonderful experience to see you present. So, Valdemir, please, your final thoughts.
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Anna. I think with the ambassador, which is an honor, comes responsibility. And I wasn't ready for that before. So maybe some conspiracy. The world is conspiring to help us because, to be honest, I couldn't figure out these things just some months before. And you came, up here, we met each other from Ecuador, the website, and in a meeting, and you said, oh, I said, Len, you're doing an amazing job, and you invited me. So I thought, I'm ready to face that. There is some costs, however. My parents are scared. My mother is a little bit concerned about being exposed. My father doesn't understand a bit what's going on. He asked me just about before the website that, oh, are you sure you're gonna get the right things? You're not concerning. So we have costs at the family level, but we have to go beyond that because we have a mission. And I found my mission on earth for my life. I want to fight for exposing what the criminals, the elite are doing, what these corporations are doing. It could be much worse. And I don't want to see my nephew, which is a 3-year-old boy, facing fascism later in life, who has no concerns about life of beings and well-being. So we have to fight now, and I'm ready for that. I accept your challenge to host a podcast here in Brazil, although I have no skills like you at your level. I'm far away from that, but I'm gonna get there. And we're going to host a podcast here, going to invite people to have a channel for a reliable source. Thank you, Len.
Thank you very much, Valdemir. That's such an inspirational message. It mirrors my thoughts about how things happen for a reason. Anna and I like to use the word synchronicity. Things happen when they have to happen. I met you exactly when I was supposed to meet you. And thank you for accepting this challenge. Sometimes you don't find the mission finds you. And thank you for accepting this challenge. And the fact that you are our first international ambassador, we have big ambitions at Targeted Justice. We understand how this court case will create a legal path for liberation of targeted individuals all over the world, how it will reverberate throughout the targeted justice community, all the 6 million people that are suffering without justice, without any hope of receiving their life back. So thank you, Valdemir. You're part of the team. You're part of our worldwide mission. And as for me, I'm calling this episode Course Correction, because we expect the judges in the Fifth Circuit to overturn the laughable, the non-factual, and I think staged dismissal of our well-pleaded case. When I think about how much in the life of targeted individuals has been staged, scripted, intentionally directed, I compare it with performance art with the purpose to ruin the lives of the targets. But should we allow performance art in our courts? Anna Toledo, in her legal brief, points out to incontrovertible facts that cannot be and must not be turned into another staged event. The Constitution doesn't tolerate it. The separation of power doesn't tolerate it. And we, the people, don't tolerate it. What's been wrongfully adjudicated must be rightfully corrected. Until that happens, we will be here every Sunday. Rain or shade.